Hello. Do you want to play a game?
Be food and drink and ghosts, and perhaps even a few murders. You're all invited.
Hello and welcome to Cheers to Fears, where we combine alcohol and horror for your entertainment. Today we are making a drinking game for Evil Dead, not to be confused with The Evil Dead. Evil Dead, made in 2013, is a soft remake of 1981's The Evil Dead.
This installment was directed by Fede Alvarez and written by Alvarez and Rodo Sayags. The pair worked together on multiple projects such as the Don't Breathe movies and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Again, not the original, but the requel made in 2022.
Evil Dead 2013 shares many similarities to the plot of The Evil Dead from 1981. The main difference is the reason that the group of friends are at the cabin in the woods. They are in the cabin because Mia is swearing off drugs, and to prevent herself from relapsing, she thinks that spending time in an isolated location surrounded by her loved ones to support her is the best way to do so. Tensions are a little high because Mia's brother David is there to help despite him not talking to the friend group for over 10 years that he used to be a part of. After Mia goes into the woods and starts seeing things, the group of friends quickly realize that her wanting to get out of the woods was not because she was just relapsing.
Just a bit of a forewarning. Again, this is going to have some spoilers in it just because of the rules. But we don't think it's going to take you out of the movie too much. So, with that being said, let's move on to the first rule.
Yeah, which, as always, is death. Which, in this movie, it gave us 10 sips.
Double the original. I'll say that. Some of them, I guess, were also in passing, such as the mom in the beginning. Mia technically died one more time, and then the mom was also deceased, and we included her.
Yeah.
So there's a few of them that weren't actual on-scene deaths, but we included them because they were mentioned. Yeah. So anyways, let's move on to the next rule, which is screams, cries, and yells, and that came to 24.
Yeah, again, it's pretty high. It's been like that for the entire franchise. In this one, I don't know. I didn't expect it to be as high as some of the other ones, but it lived up to the Evil Dead franchise rule, I guess.
I didn't expect it to match, just because in every Evil Dead franchise, Ash is kind of the one instigating
Screaming
the rules
around
because
and stuff.
he screams whenever he's attacked.
Exactly. But anyways, let's move right along to another rule we're bringing back. It's whenever you see a deadite. And this gave us 17 sips this time around.
This is a little bit more frequent than I think in some of the movies, and I have a feeling that that's mainly because Mia's so important for the movie itself.
Yeah, and not to mention that like everyone at some point basically turns into a deadite. So there's quite a bit of characters involved in this one, and we kind of see them all turning into a deadite. So that's why it's higher, I think, this time around.
Let's move on to rule number 4. That is whenever a Necronomicon is shown, talked about, or read from, and that came to a total of 12 sips.
Yeah, again, quite frequent, and it's all thanks to Eric. The guy freaking opens the book that's wrapped in a garbage bag and then wrapped in barbed wire, but he decides, I'm still gonna open this. It's clearly tucked away for some good reason, but fuck it.
And it says, do not read, do not read, do not read, and he goes out of his way to read
Exactly.
it. I wonder who's going to win the Darwin Award for this one.
Yeah. But anyways, let's move right along. Rule number 5 is whenever a POV camera shot is used. And this happened 9 times in this installment.
Yeah, so there was a scene where it was mercied. Once again, where David was reading it like a fucking idiot. Bang, bang, bang. However, again, franchise rule, there's, I think, a similar pattern where POV doesn't happen a lot, but there's always one scene that makes up for a lot of it, which is mercied.
Yeah, and it usually happens when they're reading from the book, and it kind of cuts from them reading the book, and then it goes to the POV shot racing towards the cabin, and then back and forth. Yeah. That kind of
I think sometimes that happens in the franchise, and we don't include it just because of the way that it's presented. So it all kind of depends. Again, up to interpretation. You can do it however you'd like.
Yeah.
Now, let's move on to rule number 6, which is whenever the title of a relative is said, and that came to a total of 20.
Yeah, so to clarify, that would be like grandpa, mother, sister, brother, anything like that. Do not include when they say baby, otherwise that'll skyrocket it. And I guess technically baby's not really a title of a relative anyways, but we just want to clarify that because it is mentioned a lot. It is mentioned a lot, and we just wanted to clarify it out there because, it could be confused, and we don't want you guys to count that one. It's not necessary.
Yeah, this was super heavy in the beginning, might we add,
Yes, that's when it's a hard hitter.
I think when Tucker and I were watching for about 15 minutes, there was like 15 sips, so it was a lot.
Exactly.
And if it continued on that pace, it'd be over like 100, obviously.
Yeah.
But again, thankfully, it didn't get to that point, so we're just left with 20.
Yeah. But let's keep moving right along to rule number 7. This is whenever a magnifying glass necklace is seen, and this gave us 5 sips.
Again, it did come back.
Yeah, we weren't sure if it was going to come back, but it was brought back in this remake, so it was important to include, I think.
I think it's a little bit more significant, and they try to add a little bit more significance, saying, that this is supposed to increase your will or something along those lines. It's supposed to make your will stronger.
Yeah.
And David says he doesn't believe in it, but Mia does, so he got it for her. So
exactly.
Interesting. So much like the All-American Rejects, let's move along to the next rule, which is whenever being there, not being there for somebody, or somebody not going anywhere, any of that's brought up, that's a sip. And that came to a total of 10 sips.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's the conflict that we're seeing a lot between Mia and David, their siblings, and David wasn't there for a lot of her life when she was going through these struggles, and I guess not supporting him, or not supporting her rather, and it's also talked about by the friends, like, you weren't there for her, we were there,
you weren't there for us, you left us,
stuff like that.
I'm
is
here
what you're
for you now. It's a lot of that.
So there might be a lot of discrepancy in when you're going to count for this rule. I think your numbers will be different than ours. It's kind of left up to interpretation to some degree. So just keep that in mind. But with that being said, let's move along to rule number 9. This is whenever there's a substance coming from somebody's mouth, and this happened 11 times in this movie. Yeah,
this was a little bit more frequent than we thought. We weren't fully expecting to add this in during the first watch, but it's one of those things that we pointed out, and it's definitely not something you kind of think of when you think of drinking rules for this movie specifically.
It's a little bit obscure, I guess, but it could be puke, could be foam in one scene when she's kind of ODing. There's drool, spit, blood, anything of the sorts like that coming out of somebody's mouth, you count it. So it's a decent rule. It's 11 sips, not too crazy, but it's gives you a nice amount of sips.
Anyways, let's cap off this drinking game with another rule that gave us 11 sips, which is whenever an object is pulled out of somebody's body.
Yeah, another rule with a good chunk of sips. To be honest, I thought it would have been more because of the nail gun scene. I thought they would have pulled a lot of nails out of the body. But we only counted it happening a couple of times. Yeah. So it wasn't as much as we thought, but it's still a good rule to include for sure.
If you ever happen to be in a CPR class or anything like that, you generally don't want to remove those wounds from the body. I'm just saying.
And that's kind of why we included it too, is because it just all these characters are being so fucking stupid by pulling them out. Especially some of them are super severe.
Oh yeah.
And they still pull it out. It's like, well, okay, you're going to die because of that. But anyways, let's move on to the totals for this drinking game. The total amount of sips we counted was 129, which is equivalent to drinking about 4.5 drinks based on our 30 sip per can scale, and using a 12-ounce can.
So as you mentioned, there's definitely some rules that are catered towards the beginning.
Yep.
And obviously movies pick up towards the middle end, so flows pretty well together, I'd say.
Yeah.
I'd say it's well-paced in saying that.
It's well-paced. It's maybe a little bit more difficult than your average drinking game, but it's not extremely difficult. You wouldn't want to pair this one with Army of Darkness, though, if you're going in order of the franchise. Just to put that out there, because Army of Darkness is pretty difficult.
So there was some rules that we didn't include for this one. One of the good ones was Animal Carcass. Whenever you see an animal carcass, you take a sip. I think the total was 15, but I think at least 2 of them were mercied. I'm not sure if the third one was. But yeah, that's just a testament to it only happening in a handful of scenes.
Exactly. It only happened a few times, and they were all mostly cat carcasses in a couple scenes that were mercied, so we just decided not to bother with that rule, and there were some other ones that we used in place of that. Another rule we could have included was whenever somebody talks in an unnatural voice, and it happened about 9 times, but we just felt like the other rules were a little more effective, I guess, in this drinking game. So
yeah, and again, some of the rules, such as the magnifying glass necklace, aren't really good for drinking, so it's, I think, only 4 or 5 sips. However, it's very important to the story, so we decided to add that in. However, with all that being said, we hope you enjoyed our drinking game on Evil Dead. If you ended up playing the game alongside the movie, or if you have any other feedback or suggestions, let us know in the comments below.
Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next video, which is going to be a drinking game for Ash vs. Evil Dead, the TV series. It's going to be our first TV series drinking game, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, thanks for tuning in. This is us saying cheers to fears.